Good. So, good. And so tonight, everybody, we're so delighted that you're joining us because many of our business leaders have told us that they get a lot of questions about soy and the benefits of soy. Sometimes they hear that there's dangers of soy. And so tonight we've asked Dr. Steve Cheney, our resident biochemist, to really walk us through the science behind soy and help us understand where the myths and some of the exaggerated stories about soy have come from, and then really look at some of the really solid science there is about the benefits of soy, and he'll really sort that all out for us. I've really been looking forward to this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had mentioned that too. It's extremely timely and I think a real necessary discussion for us to have.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yes, indeed, and these things keep coming up. They keep cropping up their ugly heads. I think it is. Yeah. Once something gets on a website and it's out there on the internet, it never gets changed.
Yeah.
That's right.
Exactly right.
Well, why don't I get us started? Welcome, everyone. This is the Monday Night Wellness Webinar. We are going to be discussing the truth about soy, busting the myths, and learning the benefits. And we have our esteemed colleague, Dr. Steve Cheney, who will be with us leading the discussion. And Dr. Cheney has his PhD degree in biochemistry from UCLA and was professor in the Department of Biochemistry and Biophysics in the Department of Nutrition at the University of North Carolina. When you retired just, I think, a year ago, was it?
A year and a half ago.
A year and a half
ago. A year ago, July.
Good. And Dr. Cheney ran a very active cancer research program, and he has published 90 papers in peer-reviewed journals. So we're really thrilled to have him taking the lead on this discussion. And then we have Barb Lagoni with us, who is a graduate from Cornell University with a degree in food science and nutrition. She worked for Kraft Foods. She's authored cookbooks, taught nutrition and food science classes at a community college. And Barb is one of our resident experts in nutrition. And so welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to our webinar. And we will start, I believe, with you, Dr. Cheney.
Yes, we're going to talk about myths versus realities, and if you would just click through the next one. I talk about urban myths, and I mentioned a minute ago, once something ends up on a blog or a website, it seems to stay up there forever, whether it's true or not, but that's where these urban myths always get started. And I think we need to recognize that when people put these things out there, that they've got a bias. These authors have some sort of bias on that they have a point that they're trying to make. And most of them, virtually all of them, aren't scientists. So they really don't know how to evaluate the scientific literature. They confuse animal studies with clinical studies. And the difference is, of course, animal studies are done with rats or mice. Clinical studies are done with humans. And we're not always the same. Authors often when there are some clinical studies, one of the things to understand is that a scientist, I've said this before, but there is no glory in being the 10th person to prove a theorem is true. The glory comes from being the first person to prove that it's not true. So we purposely go out and try and disprove each other's theories. Now that is it's very powerful when you have the long view in mind and you think, if somebody comes up with a bad theory, eventually it's going to come out because people are going to continually try to disprove it, and eventually if it doesn't work, the weight of evidence will shift in the other direction. But people who aren't trained scientists don't know that. So they'll pick any one study. If there are multiple clinical studies out there and there's one that supports their bias, even if the other 9 or 10 or 20 all say something different, they'll choose the one clinical study that supports their bias. Their message is generally spectacular, and as I say, they never let the facts get in the way of a good story. Now, the problem is, and then, some of these websites are authored by doctors. So these would be medical doctors, and, I have a great respect for the medical profession, but they aren't trained as scientists. And they have their biases, too. I talked about the message being spectacular, never letting the facts get in the way of good story. How do you know as a consumer? Well, one sort of giveaway. If the headlines are always talking about that miracle food or that miracle nutrient that's going to prevent disease X, or maybe it's saying something about that food or supplement that might just kill you, or they're talking about things that the establishment isn't telling you about, and they do that over and over again, you kind of guess after a while that all of the things they're saying can't be true. Next slide. So let's think about that a little bit further. Doctors and health organizations have their biases too, and if their bias happens to be anti-supplement, and it often is, the burden of proof is applied unequally. As a scientist, I like to look at the weight of the evidence. How many papers are pro, how many are con, how good those papers are. But if you believe that supplements are going to be bad for you, you might ignore a single study showing benefit, but really talk about a single study showing that might be harmful. And that's not really looking at the weight of the evidence. And then we have the media. Media has their biases too, but the most important thing is they aren't trained in how to interpret scientific studies. And with the media, it's a spectacular. The bad news that sells subscriptions. So, and the problem is, next slide, next thing. Once a story has been repeated often enough, it becomes generally accepted as true. It becomes what we call an urban myth. So that's how these urban myths get started. That's how they get perpetuated. So let's talk about what some of those urban myths are about soy. One is it causes breast cancer, and we're going to come back to that one in a minute. But another one is decreases male sexuality. And my lighthearted take on that is somebody forgot to tell the Chinese that. But, there are 15 good clinical studies have been published that look at things like sperm count, testosterone levels, all the things that kind of make guys guys, and, none of those are affected. That's a total myth. There's a myth out there that increases the risk of prostate cancer. Now, there are numerous studies on prostate cancer, soy and prostate cancer. They're a bit mixed. There's some studies show that it decreases the risk, it decreases PSA levels. There are other studies that show that it may not have any effect on prostate cancer, but there's not a single clinical study out there that shows that it increases the risk. So it either decreases the risk or has no effect, but there's no evidence that it increases the risk. And then there's a hypothyroidism, which is another word for underactive thyroid. A lot of people blame that on soy. A lot of these urban myths are around that. Again, there are a whole bunch of studies that refute that. And again, if you look at people who consume soy versus those who don't, you look at thyroid hormone levels, any measures of thyroid hormone effectiveness, there is no effect of the soy on thyroid hormone metabolism. Now, the only place, that kernel of truth, is that soy can inhibit the absorption of thyroid medications if you take it at the same time. So if you're on a thyroid medication, you want to wait about an hour after you take your thyroid medication before you consume something with soy in it. But by the way, that's true of lots of foods. I mean, if you are on a thyroid medication, chances are pretty good that your doctor has told you to take it first thing in the morning and wait 30 minutes or an hour before you eat anything. So, it's just as true with soy as it is with any other food. One of my favorite myths, because once you start to point out all of these things, what some of these bloggers fall back on is say, oh, well, all those studies were done with fermented soy. If it isn't fermented, it's bad for you. And again, that's not true either. So, those are some of the things. I didn't give you the references there, but you can find those references. I have a video called The Truth About Soy list all the references there, and you can find that on Health Tips from the Professor, my new information newsletter. On that website, you'll find the Truth About Soy video. But I do want to go in a little bit more detail about soy and breast cancer. We just finished Breast Cancer Awareness Month, so it's probably on the top of everybody's mind. And that's one of the biggest myths that you will hear. And has a lot of women really afraid of it. The claim, of course, you've heard this, is that soy consumption is going to increase your risk of breast cancer. And by the way, if you've ever had breast cancer, you should avoid soy like the plague. I mean, that's what you hear out there. That's the urban myth. So let's look at the reality. Those fears are based on animal studies, and actually those results are mixed. Some animal studies showed no effect. Some animal studies showed a slight effect. But again, mice aren't humans. What we do know, and there are a number of, I just cited one, I think this was a review here, this Cancer Epidemiology, Biomarkers and Prevention. This is just a review of many studies that show that soy consumption over a lifetime in humans decreases the risk of breast cancer by 25 to 58%. But what if you've had breast cancer before? Well, again, this is a big study. I've referenced it here. Journal of American Medical Association, published in 2009. There's actually been, I think, 2 other studies since then that have come to exactly the same conclusion. And that is, if you look at breast cancer survivors, and you look at ones who had a high intake of soy versus a low intake of soy, after after they've gone through chemotherapy, surgery, whatever they've gone through, and you look at the soy intake after they had breast cancer, those with the highest soy intake had a 25% less chance of breast cancer recurrence and a 25% less chance of dying from breast cancer. So again, the evidence, the weight of scientific evidence is 180% different, 180 degrees different from the myths that you hear out there. So this is just a quick slide. Barbara found this somewhere. I guess she found it from Find Wholeness, and I guess that I can't see that website on my slide here, but that's okay. So you hear all these fictions. Soy is bad for you, increases your estrogen levels, increases your cancer risk. It's going to cause men to grow breasts. It's going to cause erectile dysfunction, low sperm count. And I've dealt with most of those fictions so far. We actually know that soy protects against some cancers. It also helps regulate cholesterol levels. It can help lower blood pressure. It's a great protein source. It's low in saturated fat, low in cholesterol, and high in fiber. Next slide. And this is the benefits of soy. You can see there are a whole bunch of possible benefits here. The evidence for some of these is stronger than others, and I'm going to come back to that later on. But there are lots of benefits for soy, and there really are no proven detriments. And that's where these urban myths can really lead people astray. Okay, next slide. And I believe this one is yours, Barbara.
Okie dokie. Well, thanks, Steve. And so we wanted to then tell you a little bit about some of the soy products that Shaklee has been producing, some of them for a very long time, and others relatively new, but they are all really wonderful and remarkable products, and that give people the benefits that Steve just ticked through. So you want to, you can click through these, Joe, if you'd like. So we're going to start with the Shaklee 180 proteins, and wait,
you want me to go back?
No, you know what? What I wanted to do is have Steve talk about all of those products that you just saw there that Shaklee makes have non-genetically modified soy in them. And so I wanted Steve to just take a second, Professor, if you would, and talk a little bit about genetic modification, because there is a ton of stuff in the media about this.
Right, it's a hot topic. We just had a referendum in Washington State. I haven't heard the final results from that. I guess they have a lot of ballots. They must be counting them all by hand and on their fingers and toes, and who knows what they do in Washington State. But, basically there's a lot of hype about this, and some of it's true and some of it isn't. So let's talk about the risks associated with genetically modified organisms, GMO to people and to the environment. And when we look at, when we look at the effects of genetically modified foods, there are two constituents of food that we need to be concerned with. One is the DNA, because genetic modification is by definition a modification of the DNA. And so when we look at DNA, again, this is something that could be a potential problem, because, some plants have been modified to produce pesticides. So when bugs eat the leaves of those plants, they'll just drop dead. Well, that means they got a pesticide gene in them, a modification of their DNA. And, even when we eat a food, some of that DNA actually makes it to our intestine intact. We've got bacteria that really specialize in just picking up pieces of DNA and inserting them into their genome. So we could theoretically end up with bacteria in our intestines that we're producing that same pesticide. Now, I say theoretically. This is a possibility. It's never actually been proven to occur, but it's a possibility. So that's a concern if you're eating a genetically modified food. Now, if we look at the proteins, and this is going to be true of the whole food or from proteins isolated from the food, you've made modifications to the protein. So you've modified the DNA, but you've also made modifications to the proteins, and that can cause allergic reactions. As this little graphic on the right says, there's been a 400% increase in allergies since GMO were introduced. We don't know whether GMO foods are the cause of that. It's very difficult to quantify food allergies. So we don't have any hard figures on that, but it's something that's a likely problem. So these are two things that are really likely problems with genetically modified foods.
Okay,
Next
click.
slide. Okay, now the other thing's the environment, because a lot of these genetic modifications are to make the crops resistant to herbicides. And while the Monsanto and these other companies say, well, that doesn't mean that people are going to use more herbicides. I mean, you got to get real. What are you making the crops resistant to herbicides for? So that farmers can put more herbicides on the ground and not destroy their crop. So it encourages the overuse of herbicides and pesticides. And there's also the whole issue of genetic diversity. If you think about, there have been numerous instances of that, but I think the one that really strikes people's minds is the potato famine that occurred in Ireland, when was it, 100 years ago?
Yeah.
Thereabout. But basically, they had one variety of potato, and that was their cash crop. That was their main crop. Everybody grew it. And when a pest came along, it was able to destroy that one potato, and one variety of potato. There was mass famine. There were other varieties that could have survived, but everybody had relied on that one variety. So, then when you don't have that gene pool, the genetic diversity in the crops that you're growing, you're always susceptible to that new virus or that new pest that comes along. But the other thing I really want to put in perspective, because this is where some of these genetic GMO labeling laws or proposed laws really go a little bit overboard, because they want to label everything as genetically modified if any component in that food product came from a genetically modified organism. And once you've purified a sugar, an oil, maybe a B vitamin, whatever it is, you purified sugars, oils, and nutrients extracted from those foods, they're no different whether they come from genetically modified or non-genetically modified. The DNA is different, the protein's different, but the purified sugars, oils, and other nutrients really aren't that different. And the problem is that when this whole issue about genetic modification started to loom on the horizon, the food manufacturers, or the suppliers for the food companies and that sort of thing, saw the writing on the wall, and so they started to make non-genetically modified foods available, non-genetically modified proteins available, but they didn't do anything to increase the amount of, non-genetically modified sugars, oils, and nutrients because there was no reason to. There was no scientifically valid reason to. So, in the first place, there's no scientifically valid reason to label, to cause concern about those ingredients coming from genetically modified food. And the other thing is we really don't have the supply line yet to even satisfy that if those laws were to go into action. So that's why you have these big companies who, sometimes they really are bashing some of these big companies for lining up against that. It's because it really isn't practical yet, even if they wanted to be able to meet that demand. So that's my...
Okay, all right. That's helpful to put all that in perspective because there are concerns about it. We know they've been banned in Europe, the genetically modified seeds, and so it's something that we all keep watching. But Shaklee, being Shaklee, they have all of their soy protein products all are made with non-genetically modified soy. And so we want to tick through some of these products for you to make sure that you know about. They are just wonderful, wonderful products. And what I realize from the benefits that Steve just reviewed for us is that when you make these products just part of your normal routine, many people, they have them every morning for their breakfast, or they'll have them 3 or 4 times a week. They'll have the shakes, but they'll always have the bars in their handbag and their briefcases and their office drawer, because there are just times when you're eating on the run, and if you can have healthy things around to eat that are quick and convenient, you'll reach for those instead of wandering into some fast food restaurant by mistake. Anyway, so let's look at the Shaklee 180 smoothies. Number one, there's a wonderful variety of them. They have vanilla and chocolate and strawberry and coffee latte, and now they're producing seasonal flavors. And until December, we've got this really creamy, smooth one called vanilla chai. There's 24 grams of protein in these shakes and 6 grams of fiber. So immediately what that means for you is you eat one of these and you're not hungry for a month. I mean, it just stabilizes your blood sugar. And it stops those cravings that often attack us mid-morning and especially mid-afternoon. And one of the amino acids that they use in them is leucine, which is this fabulous amino acid that your body uses to repair and rebuild muscle. Now, that's important all the time because, just as we age, we have a tendency to lose muscle. Many of us have desk-type, computer-type jobs, and so we're not as physically active. But if you are looking to maintain your weight or lose your weight, leucine is particularly important because muscle burns about 50 calories a day, whereas a pound of fat only burns 2. And so as you can build muscle in your body and lose the fat, now your metabolism improves and you're burning your calories at a better rate and you can maintain your weight quite comfortably. 23 vitamins and minerals, low glycemic, which means it's not spiking your blood sugar. So if you eat a banana even for breakfast, you'll spike your blood sugar and then it comes plummeting down. And when it comes plummeting down, it's only a matter of time before your hand is in the cookie jar. No artificial flavors, colors, sweeteners, preservatives, like all Shaklee products, gluten-free, lactose-free.
Lactor.
I think I was typing with my mittens on. Okay, next slide.
All right, Shaklee 180 snack bars, which I can't imagine trying to live without these. It's just amazing to me in this small little snack bar how that they can pack in 9 to 10 grams of protein. It's just incredible. Along with 3 grams of fiber, that leucine that Barb was talking about, which is wonderful, at only 120 to 140 calories. Again, it's, all this is low glycemic and gluten-free, but these snack bars, loaded with that protein and fiber, go such a long way in curbing hunger and keeping the munchies at bay. And I reach for one of these just about every afternoon, and whether I even really need it or not, even if mentally I think I need a little snack, I feel so good having something like this. And they taste fabulous. And they have a new flavor, chocolate toffee, that we've only had for a few months that I think is to die for. And they're coming out with 2 new flavors that you'll be hearing about. Steve and I had a chance to try those when we were out in California a month ago, and they are truly delicious. And that will really round out. We have chocolate, lemon cranberry, crunchy peanut butter, and toffee chocolate crunch. So they're great to have, just keep some in your purse, your briefcase, desk drawer. And then the Shaklee meal bars. Now, Mike and I have one of these just about every day for lunch. Again, it's packed with those 20 grams of protein, and as we say there, it's hunger fighting protein that just they fill you up, and partly I think the 6 grams of fiber. Again, all the other things, non-GMO, soy protein, low glycemic, no artificial anything, gluten-free, and both the bars are now gluten-free, which I was thrilled with. And it's kind of a grab a meal in a bar and go. It just, there's everything that our body needs here, and the protein and fiber again give us that full and satisfied, for feeling for hours. And I love it. I mean, it's just, and these also are great, to carry with you, or especially if you're traveling or you're going to be gone all day, grab one, carry it in your purse or briefcase, because they're just wonderful. And we have them in blueberry almond crisp, which is not my favorite, but peanut butter and chocolate chip is. But some people love the blueberry almond. Different flavors that satisfy different tastes. And we will have a new flavor here too, which I thought was to die for. Really good. And
I actually sell equal amounts of the blueberry and the peanut butter chocolate chip. Just want to put in a little.
Yeah, I know. People, and it's interesting because I think people have a definite taste for one or the other, it seems like. Most people do.
I didn't put a name on this one.
No.
Oh, okay. Well, Snack Crisp. I particularly like these because I like savory and I like, salty, chippy, snacky stuff. And particularly what I like about these is they're soy, so they're not carby. There's 100 calories, 6 grams of protein, all the other stuff we just talked about. And then I particularly like this. If you like hummus is a pretty healthy food. It's chickpeas and garlic and what else is in there? Olive and chickpeas. And anyway, and you can, but it typically is eaten with like bagel chips and things like that, which are all carby. But you can use this with hummus. They're so good, but they're very satisfying. And so if you feel snacky at night, these are great to grab. Click.
And again, they got 6 grams of protein in each bag. I mean, it's just amazing to me.
Satisfying, right. And then energizing soy protein, which has been around 100 years, delivers sustained energy with highest quality plant-based protein available. Good old energizing soy protein, we always have this in our kitchen cupboard. Do you know that for many families, I know cereal is popular, but cereal really nutritionally does not offer a lot. In fact, most of even the so-called, good non-sugar cereals, the Cheerios, Wheaties type folks, they've got like 2 grams of protein in them. Yeah. And so I remember years ago when I was just, learning about Shaklee and learning about the protein, then, as I told the kids, if you want to have cereal for breakfast, then you've got to sprinkle something healthy on it. I don't care. We have meal shakes. You can use Shaklee 180, or what we've always used is the energizing soy protein because it tastes so good. But now it gives a little oomph and some nutrition to cereal if people love it. You can also make smoothies, where you can, put all kinds of orange juice and frozen strawberries and mangoes and whatever you want in your blender and put this in with it. 14 grams of protein and low glycemic and probably what we use it for a lot also is the peanut butter fudge recipe. So I stuck it in here quick because it's just a cup of peanut butter and a cup of protein, either flavor, the chocolate or the vanilla, and a third of a cup honey. It takes about a half a minute to make them, but boy, kids love them. They read them like a snack. If you send them to school with the lunch, they'll read that like a dessert. Click.
And by our grandsons and our boys did too. Start the day with a soy protein shake. They're great for kids and a great way to get their day started off on a real good high for them.
So important for children to have, for everybody to have protein in the morning.
Yes.
And this to the product is somewhat overlooked, but I love instant protein soy mix. This is I bake with it and I cook with it. It will withstand heat. That's what the difference, and it has essentially no carbs in it. It's like less than a gram, but it's I just substituted for a portion. Usually maybe about a third of flour in recipes from biscuits and muffins and breads and stuff like that. 25 grams of soy protein a day helps reduce your risk of heart disease. That's from studies that are pretty solid. Water processed, which Shaklee really made a point of, that this is how they retain the naturally occurring isoflavones that are so important in soy and that have all of the benefits that Steve mentioned earlier. And kosher, most of these are kosher. I just forgot to mention it on most of the slides. Okay, you can click. It's a slow clicker tonight. Okay, so if you would unmute, you unmuted. Harper, are you there?
I did.
Hi, I'm here.
Very good. Okay, so you want to unclick that last one because that's going to be a surprise when she gets that. Okay, we invited Harper Guerra, who is a mother of two, including that adorable little thing you see there, and because these Shaklee soy protein products are so important, especially to young families. So I asked Harper if she would just quickly walk us through how they use these products in her house, and some of the reports from her customers. So thanks for joining us, Harper.
Of course, it's my pleasure. One of the things that that I wanted to mention was that before I found Shaklee, I had started understanding the importance of protein and how it particularly women weren't not getting enough protein. And my sister-in-law and I had been taking protein shakes, and I realized that if I drank them too quickly, that I'd get a horrible stomach ache. And she was like, "Yeah, that's just you have to take about 30 minutes to drink them." And when we both switched to Shaklee protein in our protein drinks, we could not believe what a difference it made. Having something that was high quality and that was easily digestible, and just the quality was evident even just in that I could drink it quickly and feel good, which was based on all the things that we had used in the past was not the case. But it really having protein, and these soy protein drinks are just an amazing benefit to young moms. When I was pregnant, it was hard to get enough protein. I'd wake up in the middle of the night hungry, looking for something healthy, nutritious, and filling to eat. And, even making half of a 180 shake, at 2 in the morning when I woke up hungry was great because of all the nutrients. I'm getting the protein that I need to give to my baby. And then in lactation, too, a teammate of mine, her lactation consultant even told her, like, this is great. This is helping your milk production, and because you don't want to be eating unhealthy foods to try to get all the nutrients that you need and all the protein that you need to provide it for you and for your baby. But it's also amazing helping you lose that baby weight, and it's safe for mom and it's safe for baby, and you can be actively, working to get to a healthy weight again while taking care of yourself. And as a mom, I find it's great because it's convenient. I'm, getting the kids' lunch together and heating up this and getting that, and, even just the time to sit down and eat food is more difficult when you have little ones. And so to be able to mix up a Shaklee 180 shake and drink it while I'm preparing their lunch and then sit down with them and finish drinking it is fabulous. And it's healthy. And when I'm rushing between this and that, I can grab a snack bar or a meal bar. I've taken meal bars when you like meet friends at the park for a picnic lunch. I bring a meal bar with me, and so it's really easy and it's great for the kids. You know, it's safe for them. I can make them a shake with my Shaklee 180, and I can eat this little one. She found the rest of this bar and started chomping on it, and that was okay. And you know, I can find confidence, like I can in all Shaklee products, that they're good for my kids on road trips. Those little snack bars make great meals for my 3-year-old. And you know, when we're running from here or there, I can pack those in my purse, and it's a perfect size for her. And they're delicious. She would ask for that, you know, as much as a candy bar. Like, they're delicious, and the kids love them. And you know, the energy is a huge thing for moms, and I mean, for people in general, but for moms especially. And the first thing when people go on the Shaklee 180 program, the first response that I get, even before they start to notice the inches lost, is that they have so much energy. And it's because they're getting the protein that they need. I mean, call after call after call that I'm calling people, how is the program going? I can't believe how much energy I have. I can't believe what I can do. But if you're trying to get quick foods and they're not nutritious and they don't have protein, then you're going to be lacking that energy. So yeah, and just the fact that they're safe, and they're safe for the kids, and says a lot about that they're safe for you, and that I can share them with the kids and feel, you know, good about giving them this good, healthy protein. But a funny story that I wanted to share was Nathan and Jenny Oates are very successful Shaklee distributors, and they also do a lot of personal training. And my husband and I asked them, you know, how do you talk to these people, especially men who are training, like, well, I can't have soy, you know, I'm going to get man boobs. And Jenny said, she's like, you know, before I even get into the science, I showed them a picture of my husband, who's pictured here, and say, he's been taking this soy protein for 25 years. And, you know, if you are worried about man boobs, you know, yeah, you know, keep worrying. And I thought that was really funny, because it is. And on a not so funny note, it really, just like the landmark study, you can look, like Barb said, you know, the Shaklee energizing protein has been around for a very long time. And you can see the effects in the people who have been taking Shaklee products, including the Shaklee energizing soy protein, for a long time. And it's evident in that. So anyway, so that's, you know.
That's excellent.
Great.
Yeah, you really nailed it, Harper. I know. It's like it's just wonderful products, and they become very popular, and there's a lot of stuff on the market. But you got to be very careful, because if some of these protein products are not made properly, and I remember a bodybuilder one time telling me that he developed pain in his lower back. You know what's located in your lower back? Your kidneys. From being on some
protein,
Yeah, and they market a lot of that stuff, you know, to the athletes and stuff. So thank you, Harper. What's next there, Joe? Okay, Joe, to summarize, here are all the points that Steve made earlier. There's excellent evidence that soy reduces hot flashes and menopausal symptoms. You want to make a note of that. And there is good evidence that it reduces cancer risk, both for breast and endometrial cancers in women. There's some evidence that it helps cognitive function in women. I guess we really didn't talk about that at great length, but there is some studies around that. May reduce heart disease risk in high-risk individuals. Although interesting, there are some studies right on the Shaklee website about soy and reducing risk for heart disease. But this was a myth that Steve busted for me, is that there's no convincing evidence that it strengthens bones, because that was something that I had been taught at some place. That then you go back and you think, where did I hear that? You know, and then. So thank you, Mr. Professor.
One of these things that comes along where, over a period of time, you have to look at the weight of the accumulated evidence. So, you know, you could cherry pick some studies that might suggest that it strengthens bones, but there have been enough studies done now that it's pretty clear that any effect there would be pretty marginal.
Okay, I give in on that one. Okay, click.
So, to conclude with everyone this evening, we want to just make a couple of suggestions so that you could work to improve your health with using one or more of the Shaklee soy products. And if you're looking to lose weight, or you'd like to get through the holidays without weight gain and not have to worry about those extra 5 to 10 pounds over the next 6 weeks, consider replacing one meal a day with one of the Shaklee smoothie shakes or one of the meal bars. It'll just help to bring those calories down for you. Or grab a snack bar before you attend a holiday event so you aren't ravenous when you get there, and that it'll just help you. You can taste things, but you're not going to overindulge because you don't have those cravings and that hunger surge. We would strongly recommend that everybody consider a protein shake or smoothie along with the Shaklee Vitalizer, which is our vitamin strip, for the best breakfast on the planet. You could not start your day in a better way than with a protein shake and the Vitalizer. And the soy products will help you maintain good energy levels. It'll help stabilize your blood sugar so you don't have those cravings that force you into eating things you shouldn't eat. And so just our strong recommendation is to make Shaklee protein drinks and bars part of your weekly routine for healthy eating. You'll be so glad you did, and your body will thank you forever. And I think that's it for this evening.
That's a wrap on that. I noticed that someone had asked a question about where these slides will be available, and we archive them at betterhealthin31days.com. And so you can get your own site there, or if you know somebody who invited you, they can tell you how to access that site, betterhealthin31days.com. Okay.
And the link to get someone on, you just have to send them the GoToMeeting registration, just like you did, and then they'll get their once they're registered, they'll get a weekly email. Let's see. Carol says, "I never use the honey. It's sweet and enough without it."
Yeah,
for
that's
the
good.
Peanut butter balls.
Yeah, for the peanut butter fudge. Yeah, that's great. And peanut butter and almond butter vary so much from one brand to another. And if you get purely just peanuts that have been crushed into, then sometimes they're a little thinner, and sometimes other spreads are kind of thick, and so and it depends on if you're trying to sell it to small children or not.
That's right.
Yes. Yeah. So that's it. So honey is optional. Very good. Thanks.
And you can add, depending on if you're eating them too, adults, you could add, nuts and coconut.
Well, I add flaxseed.
Oh, sure.
It's real
Great
crunchy.
idea.
Sunflower seeds. What do you do, Harper?
We add coconut flakes and chia seeds.
Nice.
Yeah. Great idea. Great. That looks like that's it.
Good. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Barb.
next,
Thank you, Dr. Cheney.
next week we'll be talking about diabetes. So thank you all. See you then. Okay.
Good night.
Good night. Good night. Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Harper.